Hey, it's Gareth here at SIOAAA talking about major incidents. We all have them and they are rarely, if ever, a nice experience for end users, customers or the IT department themselves, let's face it. Now, I love a good quote, and one of my favourites is from Epictetus, the Greek philosopher, who said, "It's not what happens that's important, but how you choose to react to it that is." I mean, I know, right? IT service management and Greek philosophy all in one video. You are lucky viewers, all six of you. Anyway, back to that quote. Unfortunately, only half true in regards to what I'm talking about today. For customers, users and providers of IT services, well, of course, it's important what has happened. And that's especially true if that thing has had a detrimental effect to the customer and users of the service, as major incidents typically do. But the latter part of the quote is the standout bit for me. From an IT department's perspective, how teams react to major incidents is often what gets called into question and causes frustration if it doesn't meet expectations. You know, be that was a ticket, was it or wasn't it handled as a major incident? What was the timeliness and quality of the response like? And how long that issue presented a negative impact? Now, to avoid those sorts of frustrations, the key for me is clarity and consistency about the parameters of what is and what isn't a major incident. So let's explore a couple of the common gotchas when it comes to delivering quality and consistent major incident services. Now, one of the key elements of service means providing consistent, predictable outcomes to customers. As you and I know, when we're utilising services ourselves, if the outcome is not predictable and consistent, well, you're going to get pissed off. Imagine you go to an ATM, you put in your bank card and PIN code, select how much cash you want to withdraw from your available balance, and it's ambiguous whether or not your cash is going to come out. You'd quickly opt to use an alternative cash machine if that were the case. So consistency is key. A start is to ensure you have a consistent definition of what constitutes a major incident, and that definition is objective, quantifiable, understood and used by those utilising the service. You're probably thinking, well, that's easy. It's an incident that meets the highest impact and the highest urgency statements as part of your incident prioritisation, and you'd be absolutely correct. But I've seen so many times companies abandon those standards or adopt really loose definitions as part of their impact and urgency ratings, which ultimately leads to an inconsistent, subjective assessment about whether the incident in hand does or does not meet that definition. And what that leads to is some incidents being treated as majors when perhaps they shouldn't be, and vice versa. And doing either of those things has long-term dire consequences for your services. So some examples I've seen in the highest impact definition, things like the incident is having a significant impact to the business, or the incident has the potential to cause financial impact. And in the highest urgency definition, the incident needs to be fixed immediately. Now, I'm pretty sure if I were a customer, and I know I have done this, I'd find it possible to make a case that any incident I was raising meets those sorts of statements. For a start, some of those words used are really, really subjective. You know, significant impact, for example. Well, let's define the word significant for a start. I'd encourage you to review the statements you use for what constitutes low, medium, high critical impact and urgency, and ensure they're objective and used. A key to this, in my experience, is to be clear about what the thing is that is impacted and what sort of warranty exists for that service. Now, not all services are equal, and you'll know some services in your companies are more critical to the entire business than others. For example, for most organisations, the email service or the network service is likely to be more critical than, say, the online system used to order sandwiches from the canteen at lunchtime. And as part of the service design process, services are designed to meet certain warranty standards. Critical services are designed, or should be designed, to ensure that they are the most secure, available and continual, opposed to services that are less critical. Therefore, when it comes to determining the impact of an incident, whether or not that service is critical or not is a key factor to include. Now, I tend to opt for, as part of my highest impact and urgency statement combined, a critical service is down or degraded to the point of unusability for all users across one or more locations, and users do not have a workaround. If a service is not critical, then the likelihood is it has not been designed to meet certain warranty factors, and therefore why would it be a major incident? A high priority incident, P2 for example, yes, but not a major. The same is true if the warranty for that critical service has expired or the service has not been maintained to meet those warranty statements. And check out my added value video if you want to know more on that. Whilst subjective impact and urgency statements are bad, I've seen a worse approach which puts the decision about what is or isn't a major incident entirely in the customer's hands. Bad idea. I've said it before, customers are not experts in what it takes to deliver a specific service, and that's not limited to IT services. That definition of service again, a means of providing value, remembering that equals utility and warranty, by facilitating outcomes customers want to achieve, but without the ownership of specific costs and risks. Therefore, it is the deliverer of that service that needs to ensure the service can meet that objective. Placing decisions about how they do that squarely in the customer's hands goes against that without ownership of specific costs and risk statement. So to ensure the definition of a major incident is consistent, have objective statements about impact and urgency that link directly to your agreed warranty statements. Make sure it's clear as part of service take on what those warranty statements are for that particular service. For example, whether the service is defined as critical or not, so that all parties are clear up front. Should there be an unexpected service outage, is this going to constitute a major incident or not? And don't find yourselves debating that when the call arrives at your service desk for the first time. Another gotcha relates to who it is that is reporting the issue. Now, one organisation I work for had decided to classify any ticket reported by one of its board members as a major incident. Yeah, I know. Now, whilst not debating that the CEO dropping his phone down the toilet is important and of course needs fixing, that does not constitute a major incident. We know that major incidents have a defined process that allows IT departments to pull together the right resources in order to restore services typically within a fairly tight timescale. And that exists because the warranty for that service has been compromised and needs to be rectified as quickly as possible. A VIP on the end of the phone stating that this is a major incident needs to not be taken literally, in my opinion. Whilst users, stakeholders, feedback is absolutely critical in determining impact and urgency, it is IT that need to make the assessment based on the service impacted and the parameters to which they have agreed to support that service. Now, where appropriate, I think it's sensible to adopt a VIP service of sorts if that's what your stakeholders require. But simply accepting and adopting those as major incidents because it's a certain or nominated person making the call is bad practice. The incident management function needs to retain responsibility for assigning a priority based on the impact and urgency reported, but also in line with the service level agreements that you have in place. Another scenario that can derail your major incident service is how you opt to deal with escalations. Now again, unfortunately not uncommon for a user to log a ticket and that ticket does not meet its prescribed or agreed SLA. And of course, as expected, the user in those scenarios are well within their rights to escalate that issue. However, rarely, if ever, in my opinion, should the need to escalate a ticket result in that ticket now becoming a major incident, unless of course the impact and urgency has changed as a result. It's a really dangerous precedent to set. Instead, I'd encourage you to look at how escalations are handled within your routine incident management process. Accepting them blindly as majors, whilst that might result in the required outcome for your users, it's masking an issue, whatever issue that is, within your incident management process. And that can be down to the process, the people, or the service itself. Your incident management process should include a defined escalation process that is triggered at certain milestones of the process that firstly should aim to prevent tickets from stalling in the first place, but if they have, get them back on course with the appropriate focus by the right people without the need to simply up the priority to get the focus it needs. Finally, a crucial area to focus on is the roles that people play during a major incident. Of course, your major incidents will be managed by a major incident manager or somebody assuming that role, but it's imperative to ensure as part of your process that certain other roles are allocated to individuals as part of your IT function to make sure that the scenario is well managed and coordinated. I typically opt for sort of 3 key roles. One, to be there as the technical lead who can own the action plan to devise what activity is being taken to restore service. 2, for somebody to own the messaging back to the customer and the user community and ensure feedback is fed back into the process. And this should also ensure there is solid engagement with the customer facing elements of the service, for example, the service desk. And then finally, the major incident manager to ensure that the process is followed, that the necessary resources are engaged, roles assigned, actions tracked, calls convened, escalations made where needed. Now, this sounds very obvious, but in a crisis situation, it can be very easy for lots of people to be running around with their hair on fire and get out of sync very, very quickly. So clear assignment by the MIM of who is doing what roles they are playing can be a good way to ensure your major incidents are commanded and controlled consistently to get the right outcome. I've described it to my teams as being like a football team formation. Whilst it's necessary from time to time for people on the pitch to drift into other positions, at the outset of the game, they know the positions they are assigned to hopefully win the match. And the coach on the side of the pitch, in this example, the MIM, is there to ensure this is well managed and coordinated and corrected as needs be. These roles within the major incident process I'll be going into in more detail on a forthcoming video. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, click the bell to be alerted to new content. And whilst you're off doing that, I'm going to make sure I can think of some more analogies, and I look forward to seeing you soon here at SIOAAOA. Take it easy.